Battle Cats have units with 8 main roles, 3 miscellaneous roles, and range classifications. The main roles as listed on the wiki are Nukers, Rushers, Tankers, Snipers, Waivers, Crowd Controllers, Critters, and Meatshields. And the range roles as listed are Melee, Mid-Ranger, Backliner, and Super Backliner. Every unit has a range role, but not each one necessarily has a main role, like Dragon for example. Unfortunately, this is something a lot of people just don't think about, and every role each cat in the game has is important, though some are far better in terms of usefulness than others, which is natural. So for fun, let's rank each main role from A to D. But before we get into ranking them, I want to share a verse from the Bible with you, since this video will probably be pretty long. Proverbs 1:7. Fear of the Lord is the foundation of true knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. Many who say that they love God forget about the fear factor that comes with his existence. We don't know what he'll do tomorrow to any of us, or even today, and we fully understand that he could just reset reality. But then, that same fear circles back into love for him, because he chooses not to do any of that. And he created existence in the perfect way for us to be able to be here. It's a blessing that any of us exist, and it's a bigger one that you had time to sit down and watch this silly video. Tankers. The name Tanker has a very clear meaning, in that these are cats that have a lot of HP either in general or against specific types. Cats like Zeus or Lumina fall under this main role, even if their ranges are higher than what you'd expect for usual tankers. In the beginning of the game, as an EOC or into the future, tankers can totally carry you throughout their entire chapters, or they'll be a massive help. This is due to the fact that earlier in the game, units will be facing less high direct DPS, which makes tankers way more viable than later in the game. Cat Machine, for example, when I got and true formed him, massively helped me in Into the Future because of his resistant ability against aliens and reds, which gave him, just at level 30, an insane 612k HP, and with his 190 range and very high 94k damage per hit despite his slow attack animation, made him an absolute wall against any aliens that attempted to wipe my cats, and a serious offensive force if my damage wasn't enough to knock back my enemies. Or Jamera once I got his true form. He had just enough HP for me to beat a stage that I previously couldn't, called Flame Caldera, due to Corey's incredible damage for the time. Though this does get into the bigger question of why tankers are even useful if you already have plenty of Meatshields. Meatshields are great competition for most tankers, as they do a very similar thing, which is slowing down the enemies before they get to your base. The main difference though is that Meatshields have to be spammed and almost always have holes within their defense for enemies to slowly come at you through, unless you're using CC units. Tankers, though, are units that you send out once that are made to soak in tons of damage so you can stay firmly planted in a position on the battlefield, though as the game goes on, this role becomes less and less viable. In later stories of Legend stages, and especially UL, stages are mixed, require more complex strategy than simply setting out a really beefy unit, and later stage enemies do tons of damage, not to mention relics with Curse that disable your tank's abilities, or enemies with effects like Toxic, which is an ability that does scaling damage depending on your unit's HP. Naturally, this completely ruins any tankers and pushes you not to use them. With how fast tankers die later on in the game outside of niche or specific scenarios, it's simply better to just stick with Meatshields like Dual Eraser or 2 normal cats and an Eraser, or light tankers like Ro and Ramen. So overall, even though they're useful in early game, unlike almost every other main role in the game, tankers actually fall off after some time, so I'm going to put them into B tier. While yes, they can be useful, the chance of you putting a cat machine in your loadout while fighting normal Cats of the Cosmos chapter 3 levels is pretty low when other more effective offensive options exist, and when Meatshields and light tankers do good enough in comparison to standard tankers. Waivers. Probably one of the most unique classes are waivers. These are cats where their whole gimmick is the fact that they make waves. So cats like Manic Machilegs would count, but a cat like Dark Laser doesn't. When we think of them, we only think of the most extreme exception, that being Slime, now Jelly Dumpling Cat. Jelly, with his at level 50, 40k damage per 7 waves which reach up to 1580 range, make him extremely potent when he's used correctly. It also makes him a sniper that's capable of hurting all relevant enemies on the map with massive damage for only 450c and a recharge time of 12 seconds. This isn't every waiver though, even if we only think of Jelly when we say the word waiver, with the only one similar to him being Dark Rider Valkyrie, as she has high DPS and fast movement speed like Jelly, but abysmal survivability. Most waivers have similar roles as cats that are meant to survive and do continual area attack and chip damage like Manic Machilegs or Cat-based Mini. Most of these waivers are alright, especially if peon spam is an issue in the level. Manic Machilegs can totally clear the way for if there are too many doges for your more powerful backliners when attempting to hit the boss. and throughout the game, this role is pretty useful, since even if there aren't that many units being spammed your way, the chip damage can be nice. Unlike snipers, tankers, or CC units though, there are way less situations where you'd look at a non-slime cat waver and say, yeah, that's the answer to beating this one, because waivers as a niche aren't really that noteworthy. Cats that can use waves as a secondary ability are useful, like Talented Pizza and Lil Dragon, but most of the time something more than just the waves is needed for the unit to be really notable. That's not to say that waivers are useless or anything, but what it means is that if you replace your Manic Meatshields with Cameraman, Pizza, Cyborg, or Golfer, how much did you really lose? It's easier for me. Nukers. Cats that do high damage like Bahamut in all of his forms, Teacher Bearcat, and Barlog are classified as nukers because of that very high damage. Throughout the whole game, cats like this are extremely useful for damaging bosses majorly between their attacks, for wiping out massive amounts of enemies in annoying stages, to even killing specific important enemies that get in your way. The nukers that automatically come to mind are those that are also rushers like Awakened Bahamut and Yukamura, though the most common type that you'll be using most of the time are mid-ranger or backliners like Ragnarok, Mega Aphrodite, and the first two forms of Bahamut, though at the same time the health is usually lacking so they can remain balanced. Honestly, you can't go wrong with having a powerful unit in your loadout that can totally wipe all of your enemies or specific types, and basically everybody has one because of how natural of an idea it is to keep one, so they're going to be the first A tier. I would appreciate it if you decide to join the channel as a member to give me money, since I spend a nice amount of time making videos for all of you to enjoy. As a member, I'll shout you out, you get early access to videos before anyone else, and I'll always reply to you. Rushers. Here's the first and last main role that doesn't usually stand on its own. Rushers are defined by their very high movement speed and usually burst damage abilities. And a perfect example of this is Bullet Train because of his 85 speed and 29k damage per hit at level 30. Most rushers also have the ability to rebound, which means that if they're knocked back either from an enemy KB or natural one, they'll immediately retaliate and attack again. Most of the time, rushers are very useful for if a stage requires some kind of timing, if quick damage can be useful, if you need a cat to get into an enemy blind spot, or if you need to wipe stages quickly for time score stages. Unlike a lot of types though, rushers find their place later into the game as opposed to the start. Sure, when starting out, cats like Butterfly are nice for getting in quickly to do some damage, but quick cats aren't nearly as useful as they are in later stages, where sometimes the whole point of a stage is to quickly get rid of a threat or wipe out the base as fast as possible, or they become the main way to damage a boss that has a really long animation and annoying range like Dango or Insangleon. Even though rushers have their place in the game as useful sometimes, it's just that. They're pretty useful sometimes. Outside of that, you don't need fast cats, and it's more optimal to make a loadout centered around defense and cats with higher range, as a slow game works more than spamming fast units. If anything, it's more like a preference of if you want to put Fishman in your loadout over a light tanker, for example. I'll give rushers a B tier because I use them frequently and they're a good main role, but not deserving of A tier. Snipers. These units have high range, sometimes low DPS or damage per hit, and usually LD abilities, and their main function is either to hit the front line from far ways away like Sniper the Deadeye, or to skip the enemy front line and target backliners like Golfer and Summoner Satora. Usually, this works out well because enemy backliners like Master A variants have high knockback counts and or low HP. Snipers are a safe option to bring to each stage. Having a cat like Mega Aphrodite in most circumstances will be helpful because most of the time, if they have AoE abilities, smaller enemies will be hit despite their blind spot, and just in case there are enemies that are long range, snipers could help with that anyway. The low DPS isn't as bad as it seems because, at the very least, if the backline enemy doesn't have low HP and or a high KB count, then the sniper will still be able to offer some consistent damage against that very enemy without being killed, assuming they're well guarded. You can't go wrong with them if the enemies don't have Omni Strike, waves, or surges, or if zombies aren't present. I'd give them an A tier ranking. Throughout all of the game, they're useful since the threat of long range enemies that are annoying always exists and will always exist, be that in early EOC to late SOL to the Aqua Realms to UL, so their role is uniquely necessary. Critters. Metals. None of us like them, and I really do mean none of us. They're a type of unit that was created just so there be a specific thing to counter them, and that type of unit are critters. A critter has to be a unit that's useful because of their critting ability, just like how waivers are only waivers if you're using them because they have waves, and that's their point. Cats like Manic Island and Cameraman don't fall under this niche of main roles because both of their critting abilities are not only 2%, but they're far more useful in literally any other role. This means that all critters normally have damage that's scaled to be balanced with the critting ability's 2 times damage effect, and since metals have extremely low HP most of the time because of the their trait allowing them to only take 1 damage from all non-critting or metal killer sources, it means that all real critters have low damage and DPS. In most scenarios, even ones with small metal enemies that are used as meat shields, this makes them totally useless. Though if you have a fully anti-metal loadout and use it against, of course, metals, they'd be good. But since critters are only ever useful against one type of enemy, I'm gonna put them into D tier. You only ever look for if a unit can crit or not based on if there are too many metals in a stage. Crowd controllers. CC units either help majorly or simply don't. Common ones like Sanzo, Seafarer, and Rodeo fully rely on who you're fighting, and if you even need to debuff the enemies in the first place. Fighting the Angelic Cyclone can definitely bring Sanzo, assuming you've talented him to keep the Cyclone in place. Or are you fighting the aliens that push a bit too hard? Then use Seafarer. Within their own bubbles, CC units are great, so it's clear that these cats, more than any other role, are crafted with the intent to only counter certain traits. Units of this main role are interesting though, as some traits have better debuffers than others. Let's look at the Angel's main freezer being Juliet. Her tech animation is extremely terrible, and a lot of the time she'll be knocked back by angels before she can even get her attack off, or she'd miss. If she does freeze, it'll be at a 40% chance for 4 seconds, plus she has 250 range. Compared to Seafarer's 270 range, survivability, and faster attack animation, and you realize how much this sucks. And then if we compare them both to Bomber Cat, they get blown out of the water, as Bomber has 240 range and a 100% chance to freeze black enemies for 2 seconds, and also a very fast attack rate. It's clear that all CC units aren't made equally, and this is just in terms of freezing. With so much variety, it's difficult to rank the entire role. They're not like tankers where at the start of the game they're pretty good, or inversely for rushers. And they're not like nukers where you'd probably always have one in your loadout. Just a very inconsistent group of cats that either carry you, are useless, or their help doesn't hurt. In general, I would give CC units a B tier rating. Monumentally helpful on a lot of stages, though most are pointless on a lot of others. Kind of similar to waivers in that way. Meatshields. The oldest main role in the game, the Meatshield, is useful throughout the entirety of the game as the role's purpose is to cost little, be spammable, and stall the enemies with just enough health to stop them from moving too quickly. It's an easy A tier as it's the main block when you build most loadouts, though with some stages, like possibly restrictions on how many units you can send out, or if a strategy can work better without them, you're going to be using them because it's the easiest and most consistent way of keeping your enemies away from the base. Conclusion, hopefully you enjoyed this little video, and before you go, here's another Bible verse. Wisdom 2:5-6. For our lifetime is the passing of a shadow, and our dying cannot be deferred, because it is fixed with a seal, and no one returns. Come therefore, let us enjoy the good things that are here, and make use of creation with useful zest. This passage tells us that we should try to make the best of our lives before we go to heaven, while staying within the moral framework of Christianity. And the Book of Wisdom is full of extremely thought-provoking things like this. It's part of the Catholic Bible, so it's possible that you haven't read it if you're a Christian. I suggest you do though. There's a lot in it to think about. Be sure to subscribe, become a member, and also join the server. Goodbye everyone.